I've had a few messages from people saying that they can't do focus stacking because their camera doesn't do automatic focus bracketing. I'm going to show you how to do manual handheld focus bracketing so you can take your macro photography to the next level. There are a lot of factors that can make a good macro photo: composition, your subject, colors. Once you've nailed all those, one of the biggest things that holds you back is your depth of field. To get around that, we use a technique called focus stacking. This is where we take a series of shots at different focus points and combine them all in software to create one ultra sharp, detailed image with a depth of field that is higher than the optics in your camera can physically produce. And just to clarify, in case you don't understand, focus bracketing is the method of taking the photos at different focus points, and focus stacking is the method we use in post-editing to edit all the images together. In recent years, more modern cameras have come with a feature that is called in-camera focus bracketing. This is where the camera adjusts the focusing to allow you to get a series of shots that you can stack in software afterwards. But there's a bit of a misconception with this, where people think that they can't focus stack because their camera doesn't do in-camera focus bracketing. So let's break it all down and let me teach you how to do handheld focus bracketing and stacking with a camera that doesn't support it. For focus stacking to work successfully, the subject and the scene needs to be still. So for this video, I'm falling back to my trusty old Canon EOS R. This is a full frame 30 megapixel camera. It has no stabilization whatsoever. We don't need it. Yes, stabilization within the lens and the body increases your chances of getting a successful stack, but it's not absolutely necessary. Pairing with that camera, I'm using the Laowa 90mm 2x macro lens. Again, this is a full manual lens, no stabilization, no autofocus. Now, I'm not going to deal with the basic settings of shutter speed, ISO, and all that. You can go check out my other videos on that. If you're still unsure at this point of the video that you don't know what focus bracketing is or focus stacking, check in the comments below. I'll link some videos to more detailed videos about those specific methods. This is dealing with manual handheld focus bracketing. Primarily, we are talking about focus bracketing and how to get your bracketed shot on a camera that does not support in-camera focus bracketing. So when you go from a single shot macro to focus stacking, there are some settings you need to change in your camera to make it more successful. The first thing you want to do is come to your white balance and change the white balance. Now, generally, if you haven't messed with this, it's going to be set to auto white balance. And that's okay when you're doing a single shot. However, if you're doing a focus bracketed shot that you want to later stack, you need to change it from auto to one of the other settings. And what I like to do is I like to use flash mostly when I'm stacking, so I have mine set to flash. If you're doing a natural light, like early morning focus bracketing, then you would change that to a more consistent value, which you could just use the outdoor setting, daylight, shade, cloudy. It doesn't matter which one you use, so long as your camera doesn't change that white balance while you're taking the sequence. And what it does, it makes it a little bit easier for you to edit afterwards, because you're not having to try and match up the colors. If you've got one sequence that's got one white balance, then you've got another sequence that's got a different white balance. It would just be the same white balance throughout your entire shoot. Now, as you can see from my EVF, I am on manual focus. It's a full manual lens. The key to doing manual focus bracketing is the speed of your camera. The quicker your camera can take the shots, the more chance you've got of getting a successful stack, particularly when it comes to photographing insects. So the way I like to describe this is simply this. If an insect is going to keep still for, say, 2 seconds before it moves, then the number of frames you get before it moves is consistent with what your frames per second your camera can do. So if your camera can only do, let's say, 5 frames per second, you're only getting 10 frames to work with. If your camera does 30 frames a second, like one of the new R5s or the R6s, you're getting 60 frames to be able to work with. So the more frames you get, the quicker you get it, the more success you will get. To put it simply, the newer the camera, the quicker it is, the more success you're going to have. So if you are using an older camera, you might have to slightly adapt these techniques to maximize your camera's capabilities to get the shot. The key to getting these shots is to switch your drive mode from single shot to a high speed continuous. That's what it's called on this camera. It's called different things on different cameras, but essentially it's a burst mode. So now I've gone from single shot, and now I'm doing a burst mode. Now, to make that more successful and to make sure you don't fill up your buffer too quickly, then you want to get yourself a decent fast memory card. At the moment, I'm using Lexar professional memory cards. For my still photography, I'm using the 250 megabyte a second, it's a V60 card. For video, I'm using a V90. The higher the number, the quicker the card can write. And what that will enable your camera to do is to write from the buffer to your card as quickly as possible. So if you're taking a high number of shots, you want that to be as quick as possible to clear your buffer so you can carry on shooting. Once we've set the camera up, again, your shutter speed and your f-stop and your ISO will change depending on the scene. So I can't tell you what shutter speed to use. Just learn your exposure triangle for that, or check out some of my other videos. Once you've done that, you're good to go to do a focus bracket. Now, if you're not as young as some other people, I'm starting to get into the bracket of being a much older photographer, then you can get what's called a macro focusing rail. This goes onto your tripod. Your camera goes on top of there, and if your subject is not moving, so essentially it's a mushroom or something like that, we can take a picture and move this manually. Now, I don't use those at all. The only time I use that is to nail my first frame focusing when doing nighttime shots. That's it. What I will want to teach you to do is to do this handheld, and I do know older photographers that do this very well. But there are two methods to doing it. The first method that I will teach you is the focusing ring method. So what we do is we set up our framing, we frame up our subject. Let's say it's at 1:1. Let's say I'm going to go 2:1 actually. Let's go to the extreme. So 2:1, I frame up the subject, and all we do is, if you look at the lens here, is we hold our shutter button down and we slowly move the focusing barrel from the closest focusing distance to the furthest focusing distance. Once you've gone past your subject, so if it's an insect, once he's out of focus, you can stop doing your focus bracketing and you have it. This is the same method that your camera will use while doing autofocus bracketing. All it's doing is moving the focusing for you. Now that's a good method if you're in early morning natural light, your camera's on a tripod, you can't move the tripod, you can't move the camera, so you can use that method to get your stack. It's great for mushroom photography as well. The second method, and the more popular method, is when you're using flash. Now, if you're using flash and you have a diffuser on it can be quite hard to get to your focusing ring on your lens. So what we do then is, again, we set the magnification on our lens, right? We frame up the subject, we come just in front of the subject so the subject is out of focus. We hold down our button and we move the camera forward very slowly. So if I show you from a side view, it'd be like this. So your camera is up against your eye and your face, so it braces it. Again, we've got no image stabilization at all in this camera. We start taking the pictures and we slowly move forward. Those are the two main methods of doing focus bracketing on a camera that doesn't support in-camera focus bracketing. And it's also a method you might need to learn if you're unfortunate enough to have a camera that has built-in focus bracketing but can't trigger a flash because it's using an electronic shutter. This is the method you would have to use. Be careful to not move your focusing ring or your camera too much or your focus stack will fail. Check out this image where there's a slight blurry line in the image. That's where we haven't taken enough photos or we've moved the camera too much and it causes this blurriness. Make sure to take more photos than you need. Now, I'm unfortunate the fact that this doesn't have any of that in. It has no image stabilization, nothing like that, but I've had no problems capturing images like this and like this. But those use flash lighting. So to recap, you have your focusing ring that you can move, or you can move the camera forward to do focus bracketing on a camera that doesn't support in-camera focus bracketing. This will add a new method of capturing your macro photography so you can take it to the next level. And since I'm talking about learning a new skill, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. Skillshare can help you take your career, skills, hobbies, passions, or side hustles to the next level. I'm currently watching iPhone Photography, How to Take Pro Photos on Your iPhone by Dale McManus, and it's been a game changer for me. I'm getting into iPhone photography, and this course has everything from composition basics to editing tips, all using just my phone. And after that, I'm going to learn how to do YouTube more professionally from Marcus Brownlee. You may know him on YouTube as MKBHD. He has a course on Skillshare all about YouTube. And I also have a special link for you. For the first 500 people to use my link in the description to join Skillshare will receive 1 month of premium for free. So get started today by using my link in the description and start learning from Skillshare. So we've covered focus bracketing for natural light photographers. Now I want to cover focus bracketing when using a flash. And the key to making this work is your flash. Let me introduce you to a new friend of mine. This is the Godox V863. Now, for the keen observers at home, you'll notice it's an Olympus flash and we're using Canon. That's okay, because for focus bracketing, we don't need the flash to communicate with the camera. However, if you are going to be purchasing one of these, make sure it is fully compatible with your camera, because then you can use TTL for single shots if you wish to. But this flash, I like to call this flash the big brother of the one I use on my Olympus system, which is the V350. So this is the big brother. It's bigger, it's heavier, it's more powerful, and it doesn't miss a beat. So what we're going to do is we're going to place that onto our camera. One of the first things you might run into now is you can't see nothing through your viewfinder because you haven't got exposure simulation or exposure boost or live view boost, or if you're any OM1 user there, it's called night vision. So what you do is you turn that on, live view boost, exposure simulation, turn it off. Or, like I said, it could be called night vision. Different camera manufacturers call it completely different things. I can show you the one for my Canon, which is exposure simulation, and I have disabled it. I know for a fact on my EM1 Mark II, it's called live view boost. Okay, turn that on and that will boost your live view so you can see what you are doing. Once that's done, you choose an appropriate power. For this demonstration, I'm going to use 132 power. And at 132 power, I'm on 1200 on my short speed f8. ISO 200, and if I just press my button, hold it down, that's sweet as, doesn't miss a beat. So I'm getting the maximum frames per second out of this camera. It's not missing a beat. So what I mean by that is there's no blank frames where the camera has gone off and the flash hasn't gone off. Sometimes you get that with the V350. With the V860, you don't get no blackout. So again, it's dependent on your camera. If your camera's doing 20 frames a second, then the flash most likely won't keep up. I've used this up to 10 frames a second. So if you're finding you're getting blackouts, then turn down your continuous burst mode to a low mode that might be 5 or 10 frames a second. Once you've configured your camera so that your camera is in burst mode, your flash can keep up with it, you're all set to do some focus bracketing with that setup. The only issue is a bare flash looks crap. So you're going to need one of these. This is a flash diffuser for your flash. They are absolutely great for macro photography. So this is a flash diffuser from Cygnus Tech. It's a custom-made diffuser for your setup. So you tell Cygnus Tech what flash you're using, what lens you're using, and they will build a flash diffuser for you. Now, this isn't designed for this setup. I've had to just mash it together. It's actually designed for the 90mm Olympus lens. Why have I got that? Well, you know, subscribe to the channel if you want to find out why I have a diffuser that's designed for the 90mm macro lens. But like I was saying before, sometimes it gets hard to get to your focusing ring when you're doing flash photography with a diffuser, which is why a lot of macro photographers prefer to move the camera. So again, what I would do, I would set the magnification or focusing, get our focusing point. Again, it's just in front of where you want your stack to start, and we can just move the camera slowly forward to get the shots that we want. And again, these shots you're seeing here have been done on this exact setup using all the gear that you've seen in the video, and it works brilliantly. And the same as I said before, don't move too much. So saying that your camera doesn't have built-in focus bracketing isn't an excuse for not trying focus stacking. The only thing holding you back is you and maybe your skill level. If you find it difficult, just keep carrying on. I guarantee you will get there in the end, and you'll start looking at scenes and subjects in a different light, because when you look at it, you're thinking, do I want a single shot or do I want to go for a focus bracketed image? Now, once you've got your focus bracketed images, you want to stack them, and I use Helicon Focus. There's another link in the description if you want to see my raw workflow within Helicon Focus, and you can go check that out. Once you start getting into focus bracketing, whether you're doing it in camera or you're doing it manually like I am, and you might want to create a custom preset for your camera. So typically on all my cameras, I have the manual mode, which is for a single shot, because I'm always changing my settings on a single shot. And then normally I have custom mode 1, which is usually C1 on the dial or on the digital display, as my focus bracketing setting. So there you go. That is a basic video on how to do manual handheld focus bracketing and stacking if your camera isn't the latest and greatest and you don't have built-in focus bracketing. If you have any questions, then let me know in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. Again, there are links to other videos below this video for more focus bracketing and stacking videos. That's where I'm going to leave this video. I want to thank you for getting to the end of this particular one, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for sticking to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, then please subscribe and click the like button. It really does help out the channel. I want to thank my Patreon supporters for their continued support in supporting me and this channel. If you're interested in joining Patreon, then check in the description below this video for a link to Patreon. If you want to continue watching my macro journey, then click one of the videos in front of you now.